Celebrate over 100 years of steak perfection during the Omaha Steaks Anniversary Sale. Save 50% site-wide on USDA certified tender steaks and more. Plus, get an extra $35 off with code CERTIFIED at omahasteaks.com today. Don't wait. Shop the anniversary sale at omahasteaks.com to save 50% on legendary steaks and more. Plus, get an extra $35 off with code CERTIFIED. Minimum purchase may apply. See site for details.
All right, another scorcher out there in our fine province and in our city. So look, folks, again, it looks like rain is something that we're not going to see for quite a while. The long-range forecast looks pretty hot, pretty warm, pretty sunny. Much of the same. So if you're looking for rain, which many people are who have wells, certainly, and water conservation is a top priority for sure. Anyway, we'll take it as it comes. It's beautiful weather out there, folks. That's for sure. It's great summer weather, and enjoy it if you can. A lot of people off the roads. They're very light traffic. All that seems to be the trend in July and August here. Of course, is the traffic is very, very light. I'd like to thank Vanessa Vandeness on the other side of the glass. The control board's doing a fine job as always. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening. We appreciate it. Of course, as always, we will open the phone lines today between about 12:10 or 12:15 and 1 o'clock because we've got Clinton Wilkins in at noon with her Bank of Canada announcement. We'll find out what the Bank of Canada will do with his interest rate, and Clinton will respond and react to that. And Dr. John Gillis and House Calls goes between 11 and 12, taking your health-related questions or concerns. So, again, House Calls between 11 and 12. Then we'll have Clinton Wilkins in studio for an update on the Bank of Canada announcement, and then take your calls. Some of the things that we can talk about this story. Look, folks, I saw this morning. We've talked a lot about it. It's been about a week now since this Sean Foyt story kind of broke here in Nova Scotia with the canceled concert. But it has paved the way for a string of cancellations right across the country, including a British Columbia city. BC City said that it has increased concerns about public safety over an upcoming concert by American Christian musician who's outspoken in the Make America Great Again movement. Sean Foyt, due to play at the Memorial Park Amphitheater in West Kelowna on August 23rd, but the city said in a statement that it is reviewing safety and security plans connected to the private booking. Foyt, who ran unsuccessfully as a Republican for the U.S. Congress in 2020, a supporter of Donald Trump, has previously been criticized over his remarks about LGBTQ plus community and his opposition to abortion. A spokeswoman for West Kelowna said in a statement issued Tuesday that staff are reviewing the safety and security plans of the private booking and working with the RCMP to assess public safety for this event. So BC Premier David Eby's weighed in on this, said in an unrelated news conference that he doesn't share Foyt's politics and views. Says, I don't agree with the messaging he's promoting. So one of the fundamental questions that I think it is necessary to ask folks is, like, I don't share his views at all either. I truly don't. I think that they're absolutely wrong, I guess, based on what my beliefs are and where I am in this stage of my life. But does that mean that he should not have the right to perform and to discuss his views? Is citing security concerns a political smokescreen? And where would the security threat come from? Right? Like that's one of the questions that I would like to ask you is what do you think the security threat is? Does it come from the concert goers? Because I don't see that as an issue. So where would the security threat come from? Would it come from people who oppose his viewpoints and might clash and demonstrate at the concerts? So whose fault is that? if that's the case. Again, I don't agree with this guy at all. I don't support his views in any way, shape, or form. That said, though, does he have the right to have those views and to speak his mind when it comes to these views in Canada? Does not agreeing with the message justify shutting it down? And does it perhaps create even a further divide? Does shutting it down achieve what's the end goal in shutting this type of thing down? Is it to what is the end result? What is the end game? What is the end goal? And does it achieve it? Yes or no? Does true freedom of expression mean we must allow messaging we don't agree with? That is one of the questions that I will ask you to weigh in on. Again, it'll be an open hour, and you can talk about whatever you'd like. That's one of the things that you can get into. Something else that I'm sure that some of you might want to continue to discuss is the debate over strong mayor powers here in HRM. Again, this is hugely impactful. Councillors this week, Tony Mancini and Becky Kent, here in the studio, questioned Mayor Andy Fillmore's leadership, suggesting a strong mayor such as Mike Savage, again, to use or quoting them, does not need expanded powers. Agree or disagree? Do you support these councillors? Do you agree with these councillors? Or do you feel as though that they're in some way protecting turf or resistance to change? Change is often difficult, folks. Not everybody accepts change openly. And do you support the Houston government's involvement in HRM's business, including traffic and congestion and plans for bike lanes, and including Morris Street and housing and other things? Do you feel as though that this government is overreaching? And I've got some other things as well that caught my eye that we'll get to also. So I look forward to hearing from many of you again when we open the phone lines after I chat with Clinton Wilkins at the 12 o'clock after the 12 o'clock news. And of course, as mentioned, Dr. John Gillis and House Calls goes between 11 and 12. So look forward to taking your health-related questions and concerns. I'd like to thank Vanessa Van Den Ness as well on the other side of the glass of the control board, doing a fine job as always. Now joining me is Robert Huish, Associate Professor, Department of International Development Studies at Dalhousie University. Robert, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks, Todd. Good to be here.
All right, so Prime Minister Mark Carney meeting virtually with his cabinet today to discuss the state of trade negotiations with the U.S. and the situation in the Middle East. The meeting is scheduled for about 3 o'clock our time. How much of a sense of urgency is there right now, or should there be, do you think?
Well, there's quite a bit, Todd, because the whole agenda that Mark Carney came in on was to try to secure Canada's economy from U.S. aggression. And we're starting to get a good bellwether about how other economic zones like the EU or China have endured their trade wars. And what seems to be, I think, a lot of Canadians had in their mind was that we could get all the tariffs knocked off with the U.S. That probably isn't going to happen because no country has been able to escape that. So what's more likely to happen is trying to find a way to keep a tariff rate with the U.S. as low as possible. If it's 15%, some economists say that's manageable. Ideally, you're looking single digits would be something that you would see as an ideal situation in this circumstance. But basically, Carney is going to be quarterbacking this meeting to say that as opposed to coming forward with a bunch of reciprocity through tariffs of our own on the U.S., that we're going to have to try to figure out ways of dealing with through a blanket tariff rate. So from that, we're going to see economic shocks. We're going to see people start to react both politically and economically to this news. And then we'll also see where more public money from Ottawa is going to go to try to diversify Canada's economy. Carney's already asked Stephen Harper for his opinion about where it goes. He said, yeah, we're overdue. We have to create more diversity. So I think what we've always been saying, Todd, is there's going to be big ticket infrastructure projects that Carney is going to try to encourage. It could be transportation to help rail and highway networks between provinces, but it could also be energy. There's quite a bit of enthusiasm amongst Carney and supporters for building up nuclear energy, particularly in Ontario, and that we could see as another part of the equation. So it might be the dog days of summer, but we're right at this transitional moment for our own economy and our own economic survival, if you will.
At what point does it start to manifest itself into our economy? Potentially, there's talk of a recession, or at what point do we start to see the metrics head in the wrong direction, do you think?
Well, it can come pretty quick, and quick means about one quarter. So right now we're in July. I would say by September, October, we'll probably get some data back to see the health of Canada's economy. Now, what Canada's economy really depends on is job creation. So if there are mass job losses, certainly in key sectors, then we start to spiral down. But during this time as well, this is where federal funding, especially if we look at the steel industry or other key industries that could actually retool their operations, pivot to new goods, that's something that could actually create jobs along the way. So too can these big infrastructure projects that Carney's talking about, if it's a pipeline or a highway, that also brings it back in. The other thing is the health of the Canadian dollar. We haven't really had a big kick in the pants for bringing the loonie upwards, but the U.S. dollar has slid quite a bit, and we've actually been able to make some gains on that. So now we're in the mid-70s for the Canadian dollar as opposed to the high 60s. But the other thing, too, is how this is all measured. So just today, there was second quarter reports coming out in the U.S. about the health of their economy. And right now, there's some surveys, one came out with Reuters, said that the gross domestic product in the United States actually increased this last quarter by 3%. Now, a lot of people raised one eyebrow and possibly two eyebrows at that, because the first 3 months of Donald Trump's presidency, the economy contracted by 0.5%. So to go up 3.5% in 3 months doesn't really seem likely. And likely that is a fudged number because there's a lot of distortions with trade coming into the U.S. Some of the promised tariffs haven't hit yet here. And you're looking at all sorts of other trade imbalances along the way. There's a lot of public money in the U.S. that currently is going into import subsidies and to try to protect key industries from some of this trade impact. And if that's the case, you're going to see those inflated numbers. And so really the thing to do is to watch if it's going to be in Canada or if it's going to be in the U.S., is that you look ultimately at the final sales to private domestic purchasers. That's usually viewed by economists and most policymakers as sort of the underlying barometer of economic growth. So if jobs are being cut or lost, if trade deals are being hashed out, that's all distortion, but can private domestic purchasers get their goods at a price that consumers can pay for? That is the key.
All right, the fact that that Trump has inked deals with the EU and Japan and other jurisdictions, and the fact that as you mentioned, the economy in the United States by most measures is doing well. How does that affect the negotiations with Canada? I would think it would perhaps hurt our position.
Yeah, it makes the case for total removal of all tariffs really deaf to Trump's ears, because right now he's seeing this as something that's working. All it's doing with low-level tariffs, if it get a single digit to maybe up to 15%, is actually creating some level of stability that you're not getting when you're throwing one day to the next. We're going to do 50% on this industry and 100% on this industry. But by having that 15% stability, that in the case of the EU, for example, then the investors can start to work around that. And that's basically what people want to see, is some level of stability. So the threats back and forth, here we go. But the thing with Canada still is that U.S. is dependent upon Canadian energy in a big way. So that's Alberta. The other thing to always remember is that we are the largest trading partner with the U.S., particularly in 38 states of the 50. So put that together, that if those goods start to become tariffed across the board, then American consumers will feel it, right? If energy is part of that equation, if there's key resources and goods that go to the 38 states out of the 50, then that's another factor as well. Even with the deal with the EU, it's looking that it's going to push prices of certain goods in the U.S. up. Pharmaceuticals is a big one. Lots of European trade with pharmaceuticals to Delaware, for example. And once those prices start hitting the wallets in the U.S., that's going to hurt. Now, when would that happen? Well, look at some of the price spikes that we've seen. So right now, if you're heading to Costco or somewhere else for a tin of coffee, it's going north of $30. Well, we knew that was going to take place 6 months ago when there was a shortage in both Vietnam and Brazil. So depending on what the supply is and what's there, you will eventually see the rise in prices. It may not be overnight. People may try to do some short selling and trading with that, but it will come, Todd. There's just no way around it.
All right, so what tools does Mark Carney have in the toolbox here? What leverage does he have?
So the big thing for Carney right now is to try to make sure that Alberta and Alberta Energy is still on board with Canadian priorities right now. That's the biggest one that we can offer down. The other is also energy from Quebec, Ontario, and Manitoba. So when it comes to energy, we sort of have a full deck, but it requires that buy-in with the provinces and with those private concerns working in each province. So that's our biggest one. The second one is trying to find ways to reduce U.S. expenditure in Canada. That might sound strange, but what I mean by that is that the U.S. does have influence in Canada in terms of both border protection and a military protection. So if we say, hey, we're going to reduce your customs and your military expenditure for the top part of North America, that's another big carrot that we can bring to the table. So those are the two big ones. The other thing that will start to go really sour really fast is that if there's any sort of, shall we say, devolution of keeping people moving across the border. So things like your Nexus programs and the cooperation that the U.S. has with Canada, like pre-clearance at airports, if any of that starts to get tumbled down, that's a real problem. Goods will still be able to get through the States. The costs will be what they are. They will adjust eventually depending on what the market can handle. But if we start putting restrictions on people, that's a big thing. And we already see there's appetite for that, Todd, because most of the border crossings are down between 50 and 30%. And tourist destinations, if it's the beaches of Maine or if it's, the more crowded beaches of New Jersey, there's fewer Canadians there. And that's impacting those local economies in a big way.
Robert, always great. Appreciate your time. Thanks so much. We'll do it again.
All right, Todd. Looking forward to it. Thanks
All
so
right.
much.
Take care. Robert Huish, Associate Professor, Department of International Studies at Dalhousie University. This summer, free life jackets are being offered at some beaches in the province. We'll talk with this pilot program when we come back. All right, this story I saw on the CTV website. This summer, free life jackets are being offered at Dominion Beach, 3 others in Nova Scotia, as part of a new pilot program. Joining us to talk about all this is Paul Dion, the director of the Nova Scotia Lifeguard Service. Paul, thanks for joining the show.
Good morning, Todd.
All right, so tell us about this pilot program, please.
Yes, we are offering on-site free life jacket loan service at 4 sites throughout Nova Scotia, at Rainbow Haven Beach, Queensland Beach, Malmberry Beach in Pictou County, and Dominion Beach in Cape Breton County.
All right, and what inspired this program?
We saw from a couple of other provinces, our counterparts across the country, particularly Manitoba and Ontario, were offering a similar program, and they had some great take-up and feedback, so we said, hey, why not us?
Okay, and who might this benefit? Who should be taking advantage of these free life jackets?
Okay, all beachgoers, they're available as you arrive to the beach, and you'll see a rack and all different sizes. So we particularly like to see the children, anywhere from 3 to 10 years old, and certainly adults who are weaker non-swimmers certainly can access them as well.
Okay, when it comes to supervised beaches, what percentage of our beaches have lifeguards? Do you know? Well, I'm sure you do.
Oh, well, there's, we've identified 300 to 400 beaches that would be suitable for swimming, and we supervise 24 across the province. These are mainly provincial parks, but some municipal and one federal, and then HRM themselves guard a similar amount. So there's probably in the province around 50 supervised beaches.
Okay, and when it comes to supervised beaches, what level of skill or what level of I suppose protection do they provide? Do lifeguards provide?
Well, we always urge people to swim between red and yellow flags. That designates the supervised area. And our beaches in the last few days have been very busy. So, we have to be fully staffed and sharp on the stands. So, we urge people to swim in that area. We do a lot of what we call interventions. We don't want to make rescues, and we try and get on things before they escalate into, having to make a rescue.
Okay, what might constitute an intervention, or what might lead to an intervention?
Well, common ones would be, small kids unattended, getting out in the water and can topple over or step off a sandbar. So we would go over and try and find the parent and do some education about staying off your phone, because that's a common problem we have, and keep with your kids. And the other one is, we get offshore winds here quite often, and you have inflatables which become a hazard. They lose them or blow people offshore, and we try and pick that up right away and say, hey, it's not a good day for the inflatables.
Okay, when it comes to lifeguards themselves, what type of skill training do they require? What level of skills do they have?
Well, it starts at a bronze medallion, bronze cross, then a 40-hour national lifeguard course, a 20-hour standard first aid, CPR course, and then they learn about oxygen administration and that sort of thing. So all told, to get on that stand, you probably have 100-plus hours in.
All right, and has it been a challenge at all when it comes to finding lifeguards and people interested in the occupation?
Well, it was interesting. COVID really put a damper on our training when the pools were closed throughout the province. And luckily, the last 2 years of training have kind of picked up those people that missed the COVID years, and we're back to at least normal. And we had the most applications this year that we've had in 10 or 12 years. So we hope we're back, but, we're still constantly training new people.
Yeah, for sure. And how about budgeting for it and the provincial government and budgets in general?
Well, we get great. Go ahead.
No, I'm just that's the question.
We get great support through the Department of Natural Resources and Community Cultures, Heritage, and Tourism. They sponsored actually our life jacket loan program. They liked the idea, and they put some money. We're hoping to expand it, but the beaches and all the costs for salaries and stuff is picked up by the Department of Natural Resources, and we do have some municipal units that pay for lifeguards at their sites, and we have actually one federal unit in Gillis. So we get a number of funding sources, and we manage to try and increase salaries every year to help keep the job attractive for young people.
All right, and if people want to know which beaches are covered with lifeguards, is that information available online? I'm assuming that it would be.
Yeah, lifesavingns.ca. And click on NSLS, which is Nova Scotia Lifeguard Service, and they're all listed there. In fact, we have daily conditions every morning at 11 o'clock. All our beaches update the weather conditions, whether it's foggy, sunny, warm, cold, windy, that sort of thing, and water temperatures. So it's quite a popular site in the summertime. So.
Okay, Paul, appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Anytime, Todd.
All right, take care. Paul Dion, Director of the Nova Scotia Lifeguard Service. ACORN launched a tenant survey on the triple threat of climate, energy, and housing crisis in Atlantic Canada. We'll discuss this when we come back.
X.
The organization ACORN launched a tenant survey on the triple threat of climate, energy, and housing crisis in Atlantic Canada. Joining us to talk about all this is Darryl King of ACORN. Darryl, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time.
Not at all, Todd. Good to be with you today.
All right. For those who don't know what ACORN is all about, give everybody an overview, please.
A quick overview is ACORN is an association for community organizations for Reform Now. We're a tenants union that helps on behalf of low to moderate income tenants fight for social and economic equalities. And we have it's an international organization, and we have over 30 chapters across Canada.
All right, let everybody know about the survey, please.
We launched the survey last Friday, July 25th in Uniacke Square. The basic aim of it is to get feedback from the tenants in the area, individuals, families, seniors, people with disabilities, on how the lack of affordable housing is affecting their days, impacting their lives on a daily basis, as well as the impact of energy and a climate crisis that's happening in our country, in the world today.
Okay, who do you hope takes part in this? Who should take part in it?
All the tenants that are in fixed incomes, low to moderate income families that are struggling to meet ends meet, but it can also be everyone else in the HRM as well to take part in the survey. And then once we gather results, Todd, we're hoping to get them addressed and to send them off to the provincial government in order for them to look into this issue further and take some initiative and get some results.
Okay, so you say get them addressed. What does that mean, get them addressed? First, recognize and acknowledge, I suppose that would be the first thing, right?
Oh yes, acknowledging that there is a crisis going on in terms of lack of affordable housing for the low-income tenants, with all the major constructions going on with these high-rise developments, including two that are on Gottingen Street and elsewhere, and with the high cost of inflation and cost of living that has gone up since the pandemic, just increasing the rents to a point where tenants have to make tough choices on what to pay from month to month, rent versus groceries, medications. So we're hoping that the survey will show the personal stories from the tenants of how it's affecting them, and that more affordable housing needs to be actually built and get this addressed.
Okay, affordable housing, that's a slow crawl for sure, and although there have been some move towards affordable housing, certainly not enough, and we know that even if a government developed the will to do it and the policy to do it, it would still be a very long climb because they need to be built, and we know that when it comes to skilled labor and contractors and all of this is at play, and the cost of everything is skyrocketing as well, including construction materials. So lots of challenges, I suppose, right, Darryl?
Oh, for sure. There's no easy fixes to fix this problem. And this problem wasn't just created overnight, Todd. I mean, this has been going on, let's say, the last 10 to 15 years. I've been in Halifax for over 13 years now, and I've seen the changes starting off slow and just increasing. But there's got to be a starting point where the government has to get together with, maybe the federal level, municipal level, but we're talking about the provincial level, and just, start brainstorming and start thinking, okay, where can we start implementing, building some affordable housing for those who are really struggling. I mean, it's not an easy process to go. Currently, tenants who are in certain housing situations are living in unsafe housing situations with repairs, lack of proper heating, pest issues, everything else, and it's a threefold effect: socioeconomic and environmental factors that are playing a big part on people's on their health these days, especially mental health. And the government has to really look at this from a person's point of view, and not so much as profit. I mean, I'm thinking people over profit is a little bit more, should be focused than profit, just for the sake of profit. I'm not opposed to development from an economic point of view, but people deserve better, Todd, like dignity. Live in safe housing situation, safe homes, fair, affordable rent, decent energy costs on their power bills, but overall deserve better, deserve dignity, and deserve to live in safe homes that are affordable and not out of control, that are forcing people and families out of their current conditions and situation because the rent is too high for various factors, developers taking over buildings and doing renovations, and then for the fact of renovations skyrocketing the rents that to a point people can't afford it and are forced out. And then you have the homeless situation as a result of that. So it's affected them on all three levels. And like I said, the two aims are the feedback from the tenants on the survey, and then really find out how it's impacting their lives on these issues, take the results to the government, and then just keep the pressure on and just, make sure they try to do something to get this addressed over time. Nothing's going to stop construction in the HRM or beyond. And this issue is just not pertaining to HRM. It can be down in other parts of the province and beyond, Yarmouth, Cape Breton, wherever you go. But anyway, that's our focus. And, we have other campaigns that's all tied into other issues with rent control. And as I mentioned, rent evictions and everything else that has been going on. But this is our focus on affordable housing and the heating crisis, energy crisis. And we're just trying to get their attention. So first is get people to get involved, do the survey. I have the link. Mm-hmm. If people want to write down the link, it's bit.ly/Nova Scotia ACORN.
Okay, Darryl. So you mentioned profits, and it is an issue here, and profiteering and price gouging, and a lot of issues at play here, including rent evictions. But what about the small, in many cases, the small property owner who owns perhaps 2 or 3 units, or a single building with 2 or 3 units in it, that they say that they are oftentimes not profiting, as a matter of fact, having a difficult time making ends meet because their prices are going up as well. Their costs of doing business are going up as well. Are you concerned, or is there a concern that we kind of lump them in with the larger businesses, the large corporations that are in this industry as well?
I mean, they've got a view. They've got a viewpoint on their end, on their side as well, Todd. And with costs and construction and everything else that's affecting them. But I think you can find a middle ground. As I said, alluded to earlier, there are no easy solutions. But all sides have to come together and start finding a way to decrease costs, but at the same time look into how we build affordable housing for the tenants who are suffering. And those are the ones that we're focused on. Beyond that, Todd, I mean, it affects other people who are on other income levels, because the price on rent is not going down. It's going up like in across the country, in Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, or whatever. But our focus is on the tenants and what their issues, and making sure that they're not left out, they're not forgotten, and that they're being addressed by the government. So that's one of the aims of the survey. And by the way, I apologize to the listening viewers. That link I said was wrong. It is bit.ly/heat and housing, not Nova Scotia ACORN. So I apologize on that. Again, it's bit.ly/heat and housing.
And they can find the link on your website as well, ACORN Nova Scotia, I'm assuming?
Nova Scotia, we're on Instagram and Facebook. It's Nova Scotia ACORN, correct.
Okay. Darryl, appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this, and we'll do it again.
Thank you very much, Todd. It's been a pleasure.
All right, take care. Darryl King, ACORN member. And when we come back, we're going to do a couple of things. First off, we've got a baseball championship, 22 and under, 2025 baseball championships happening in August at the Mainland Common. We're going to give away 2 sets of tickets of 4 to that. And also the book is called The River Was Once a Road, Abandoned Roads of Nova Scotia. We'll chat with its author when we return.
Facts.
All right, before I get to my next guest, there's a 22 and under 2025 baseball championship being held in August in here in Halifax. August 8th, there's a couple of games, Nova Scotia versus Manitoba and Ontario versus New Brunswick. We've got 2 sets of 4 tickets to give away to this. If you'd like a set of tickets, be callers 6 and 7 now at 902-405-6000. And 22 and under 2025 baseball championship going at the Mainland Common August 8th. A couple of games. If you'd like to get the tickets, be caller 6 and 7 now at 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. And good luck, as they say. Well, the book is called This River Was Once a Road, Abandoned Roads of Nova Scotia. Steve Skafte is its author and joins me to talk about all this. Steve's a writer, photographer from Bridgetown, Nova Scotia, where he's lived all his life. And Steve, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so what inspired this book?
Oh, well, ever since I got into photography, I started a daily journal about almost 18 years ago with my work that I've kept up ever since. And one of the first things that interested me was abandoned history, old houses, shacks in the woods, and so on. And as I started getting into these places just off the roads I was driving, I started hitting all these dead ends and looked on the old maps and found that the province was just full of abandoned roads that snaked off into the brush that, were cut through the woods 150 plus years ago in most cases. And they're full of old foundations and rusty cars and lots of history. So I started finally getting out of the car and hiking them and finding out the stories that there were in the woods along them.
All right, so lots of content to talk about. Why don't you tell us about a few kind of the jump out that you'd like people to kind of highlight?
Well, one I really like in the book is Australia Road. That's up on Kings County on the North Mountain outside Morden. And the community actually was called Australia at the time. It was named by a man who he had wanted to keep traveling on to Australia, and he never made it, so he thought he'd name his community that and settle there anyway. And it was really just a collection of homes along the road. People made their living off of logging in there and found some foundations, dry stacked stone walls of people who lived there. And that's a great little one. Another one I love is not far from there in Annapolis County called Dodge Road. And on the woods there, I found along the ridge, looked for several years actually for a place called the Hole in the Vault. And that was a cave. And I found an article from some boys that they tried to make their way down there in the late 1800s and almost died doing it. And then the farmers all blocked it up with fallen trees to keep other kids from getting in, but they've long since rotted away. And I managed to find the entrance to the cave there, and it's quite a straight drop down into the woods.
And you divide it into seasons. Why did you decide to do that?
Well, I think more than anywhere that I explore, the seasons really define the feeling of these roads. When the leaves are down, I often find a lot of things in the brush. Like in the book, there's there's like abandoned vehicles. In one case, there's an old stone fireplace that the house has long since disappeared. And so when the leaves are down, late fall, winter, you find a lot of that. But the summer comes and the fall and the heavy rains, like it would, depending on what the season is, it really defines it. It's almost like a nature-oriented book in that way, as much as it is about the abandoned history. And because we have so much clear-cutting history in Nova Scotia, oftentimes these abandoned roads that are all still public right-of-ways, the ones I include in the book, they're so valuable to get through the woods because it's really such a pain to hike through all the young growth and the tangled brush. So yeah, you're really always thinking about the season when you're on these roads.
And some of the roads are recognizable as roads, but in disrepair, obviously, and some are basically rivers, as the title indicates, right?
Yeah, well, that's really what I'm thinking about a lot of time, especially the cover of the book is Withers Mountain Road, another one down here where I live in Annapolis County, and it's so heavily eroded from the rain over the many decades that it's now several feet down from the forest floor as you walk up it. And what often happens is that as the streams go up the mountainsides, they cut across the paths of streams, the roads do, and now as the water runs, it follows sometimes the roads more than the natural water course, and then it just cuts them lower and lower over time.
What are some of the biggest surprises that you came across when doing this book?
Well, one that stood out quite a lot was actually a somewhat more modern story. Is often when I'm working on these abandoned roads, I discover that people have illegally blocked them because of maybe they have a nearby property. They decide that they don't want anybody going down the neighboring roads, even though they're public roads, and they know that from their looking on their own deeds. But there was a road called Fielding Road in a community called Robinson Corner up Gasbro Mountain. And a few years ago, a man named Kevin Conrad was blocking the area, and I was out there a few times and seeing, if people could reopen the road, and I reported it to, the relevant authorities, but nothing was done about it. And then one day he was discovered dead in his excavator, and only then did I find out actually his name and who he was, and that he had long been suspected of murdering his wife, and her body had actually been found right near that bit of property there, and he had been trying to block the road and prevent access to anybody, which is one of the biggest problems really that happens with these roads, is that when they're not publicized and they become very disused, certain people decide that they want to claim the road for themselves, despite knowing for a fact that it isn't their road to claim.
Indeed. Okay, so tell us about the publisher and all that good stuff and where people can get the book, Steve.
Sure thing. The publisher is it's out by Nimbus Publishing, and it's available anywhere. But if you want to get a signed copy, and also you can look at my map. I have a map of all the abandoned roads that I've mapped so far in the province. You can look on my website, which is abandonedroadsns.com.
And it's kind of one of the ultimate table coffee books as well, right? Because it's easy, it's a nice read, and you flip through it, and it's great for that, right?
Sure, yeah, I hope so. I'm known as much as a photographer as I am a writer, so there's a lot of photos. I think there's about 80 photos altogether in the book, mixed in with 20 stories of roads all around the province. There's a couple out in Cape Breton, South Shore, Central, down here in the Annapolis Valley where I live. So they're scattered around, and my goal is to sort of take people on the journey, and there's also included coordinates and directions. So you can get out and hike any of these roads yourself if you're in your area, or even make a bit of a road trip to get to them yourself.
Awesome stuff, Steve. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, take care. Steve Skafte, and the book is called The River Was Once a Road, Abandoned Roads of Nova Scotia, Nimbus Publishing. House calls. If you have a health-related question or concern, give us a buzz at 902-405-6000. Again, if you have a health-related question or concern that you would like addressed, give us a call at 902-405-6000. House calls with Dr. Gillis when we come back. All right, time for House calls with Dr. John Gillis. So to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. If you have a health-related question or concern, give us a call at 902-405-6000. And a reminder, we will be in the next hour doing a couple of things, of course, taking your calls, your general calls, as we do each and every day. But we will also be joined by Clint Wilkins, our mortgage guru, who will weigh in on the Bank of Canada's decision on whether or not to move interest rates or not. Let's see here. I think I just saw the scroll here. The Bank of Canada held its benchmark rate steady at 2.75% for a third straight decision. The central bank says the Canadian economy is showing signs of resilience in the face of tariffs from the United States, but U.S. trade policy remains unpredictable. So we'll get Clint Wilkins' take on all of this and how it impacts you and what it might mean moving forward when it comes to your mortgage, of course, and your rate, which is impactful to all of us. So again, we will do that in the next hour. Joining us now is Dr. John Gillis. As mentioned, house calls. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Dr. Gillis, welcome to the show as always.
Good day, sir. How are we doing?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm doing well.
Excellent. Good stuff. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us for house calls. As mentioned, if you have a health-related question or concern, give us a call, 902-405-6000. Lorraine's giving us a call. Hello, Lorraine.
Hi, good morning. Dr. Gillis, I'm calling about my my blood work. I've been hypothyroid for 35 years or so, and I've been on Synthroid, 88 to 100 to 112 off and on, back and forth for a long, long time. And up until, I don't know, maybe 8-10 months ago, I've been doing fine. And I'm very weak, and I've seen my doctor within the last year probably 9 times. So I asked, and my doctor keeps on telling me that my blood work is fine. My blood work is normal. But something is wrong. So last week I called my doctor's office asking to have my blood work for the last couple of years sent to me, like emailed to me. I think that was last Thursday. So nothing happened. So I called Monday today, or 2 days ago, and the receptionist told me that the doctor is still looking into it. And I didn't understand what that meant. She says, well, she has to, the receptionist says that she doesn't have access to my blood work to send me, but the doctor has to look into something and then give the receptionist permission to email it to me. And it's Wednesday, and I still haven't received it. So Monday, 2 days ago, I went into this Your Health Nova Scotia. I signed in and I got on. And I'm looking at my blood work from the last couple years, and I got all kinds of blood work tests that are outside of what is considered the normal ranges, and including my TSH. And I don't understand what I should be doing because I'm not getting my records from my doctor's office. The blood work results on the website, Your Health Nova Scotia, is showing me TSH, cholesterol, triglycerides, ferritin, B12. They're all outside, and big numbers outside of the range. And I don't know what to do.
Well, I guess the first thing, you don't need to get them sent to you because you already have them. So that solves one problem.
Well, I do. I finally have them because I couldn't get them from my doctor. You're right.
Right, but that problem's been solved. So, it seems the next logical step is to go in and see your doctor with that information and say, what's up with this? I mean, and it's all context, right? TSH can be slightly elevated, but as long as the thyroid hormone itself is normal, then that's okay. Now, that may be the case. I don't have your blood work in front of me. There are things that can be a little bit outside the normal range, but not of consequence. It varies wildly. Ferritin is one of them. Ferritin is an iron marker, but it's also an inflammatory marker. So if people have inflammation of different types, their ferritin can be up, and it often doesn't mean very much. So again, it's all putting it into context. So that seems to be the logical answer to your problem. Is you have the blood work now, make an appointment and go in and say, look, can we appreciate if we could review this? Some of it seems a little out of whack, but I'm sure you looked at it. What do you think? What does it mean in context? And take it from there.
Okay, and on this Your Health Nova Scotia thing, I'm on the site right now. Is there a way that I can print my results?
There may not be an icon there, but you can print anything that's on a computer screen. Just ask someone to help you do a print screen or to save it as a printable file, and that's easy enough to do. But I'm sure someone can help you with that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks for the call. Good luck. Take care. 902-405-6000 is the way to reach us for house calls with Dr. Gillis. Again, 902-405-6000. Dr. Gillis, in the past, I don't know if this is if this is the way it once was or what, but I was under the impression, and I know that other people have been as well because I've talked to people about it, that way when blood work is ordered, if everything is normal, then generally you don't need to worry about getting a call or getting red flagged. But if things are out of the ordinary parameters, or if there are challenges, then perhaps you'll be contacted. Is that the way it works, or is that not the way it works? How does this work? When should people be proactive, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a few issues here that get that come up. Number one, I hate the word blood work. You're not digging a freaking trench. But anyway, it's always driven me nuts since I started in this business in the late 1830s. It's call it something else, a blood test, an investigation, something else. But anyway, I'll end that rant.
Okay.
Everybody's a little bit different. When I have blood tests that come across my desk, I look through them for anything abnormal. I'll check them and sign them off that, nothing needs to be done. If something needs to be done, I'll make a note, please call patient or please book patient to come in. So generally, I think that's true. If there's nothing of consequence, people cannot worry. But different offices have different processes. And again, with more technology, it may be that, there's no communication. It may be that the communication is an email that says, there was nothing of concern or significance noted on your blood tests. When you tell people to come in, they tend to assume the worst, and it could be something very minor. Again, communication. There was a abnormality in your thyroid test. This is nothing serious, but we should discuss it at your convenience, something like that. So communication comes into it, and again, using technology that's available to us to push messages out to patients can be very helpful. Again, different providers do it in different ways, but to come back to your original question, that's generally the idea. If there's something serious, you'll get a call immediately. If there's something slightly off, but no big deal, you might be asked to come in at your convenience. And usually, if everything's fine, don't worry about it. Now, again, I still think it's worthwhile, being proactive. And as the caller alluded to, people can now see their own blood work on the My Health NS app, and it does need to be put into context. But if you see something that's crazy out of whack and you haven't been contacted, things sometimes don't get sent, sometimes they get overlooked. That taking a look yourself is never a bad idea, as long as you know that it needs to be put into context.
I guess so you can assume, though, that it will be looked at by your doctor. Is that safe to say that if you get blood tests done, that the doctor will get the report and will look at it? Is that a given, or?
That is the assumption, yes. And for the other piece that's there is that the lab for critical values will sometimes call. If someone's getting their red blood count taken, and normal for a woman is like 115 or to 145 or something like that. If it comes back at 60, meaning they've lost half their blood volume, we'll get a call and say, this is, we have an urgent result here, call or an email. So there is some redundancy in the system, but, it's a lot to process. So, if you can be proactive yourself, that's good. It's important that, physicians and other providers review not only themselves, but have a process in their office, to, deal with the deluge of stuff that comes in. I mean, if it's not put in front of me, it's hard for me to comment on it. So, process is important, right? That, that we get the tests sent to us and that a set of eyes goes on them.
Okay, fair enough. 902-405-6000. If you have a health-related question or concern, give us a call. We've got the doctor for another 45 minutes or so. Give us a call. Again, 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us for House Calls. House Calls continues when we come back.
Thanks.
All right, House Calls with Dr. John Gillis continues. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, give us a call at 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. If you have a health-related question or concern, Dr. Gillis will do his best to give you some advice. 902-405-6000. Lots of open lines for you folks. Again, give us a call. While we await some calls, a couple of stories that caught my eye, Dr. Gillis, that I thought I'd get your attention, get your comment on. This one on the CTV website, I'll read a bit of it. It says it may be tougher to find some common painkillers, mainly used for chronic conditions, with the Canadian Pharmacists Group saying the shortages could last until August 10th. Some of the drugs which contain acetaminophen or codeine or oxycodone have become harder to get due to manufacturing disruptions and increased demand, according to a notice posted on Health Canada's website July 18th. Have you been impacted by this, or your patients been impacted by this in any way, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it's been a massive pain in the arse to or the technical term. You have a fair, number of pain patients on oxycodone and mixed with acetaminophen, which is commonly known as Percocet or Endocet, and that that's sort of a mainstay of both acute pain management, but those quantities would be limited. But people that are on this stuff monthly, it's and again back to the high tech system that we still run with, getting a lot of faxes saying, can we substitute this with something? The logical substitute is just the oxycodone by itself and the acetaminophen by itself. But the pharmacies are forced to contact us for every single patient. I've probably done 100 plus of these in the last month. And it just started with, what people think of as Tylenol 3s, but, there are a few different preps. Codeine, acetaminophen with caffeine in it, which is another very common pain drug. And that is in short supply as well. So we're having to split those up into codeine and acetaminophen. So it's been, I'm sure it's very annoying for pharmacists. It's annoying for me to have to do it. And it's, I guess the folks who it's most annoying for is the patients who, may end up waiting for their medication or having to, split it up. And, I guess it's, we're managing it, but it's been a pain.
What's the cause? Do you know? Is it a supply chain issue? What's going on here? What happened?
I really don't know. I mean, you wonder, obscure drugs or drugs that aren't very common, somebody closes down, or there's only one generic manufacturer, or there's it's made in a country where there's some sort of upheaval or a shipping issue. But these are, some of the most common generic drugs around. So I'm really not sure. And I can't think of a reason why demand would have suddenly spiked. If anything, since the opiate crisis of 10 or 15 years ago, we've seen a general slow decline and leveling of the use of these things. So to be honest with you, I'm not really sure.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess it does speak to the precariousness of the supply chain, though, right? And that we take advantage of, or take it for granted that we'll always have these available to us. It's kind of like going to the grocery store. We have this false sense of security when the shelves are stocked full, but they're only 2 or 3 days away from not being that way. That is, I suppose, when it comes to drugs and the supply chain, perhaps a wake up call here, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, like we saw a little bit of this during COVID, when we realized we had no domestic vaccine production anymore, and all the comments that went around that. And, we are reliant on a lot of overseas production. I think there is some generic production in Canada, but, this is important, and making sure we have, enough of a buffer, of, key medications, if something like this does happen. And, again, I don't know whose job it is to plan that. I mean, that may be part of the problem. I mean, Health Canada does a lot of things, but I don't think they're keeping track of pharmaceutical inventory. The companies probably do it themselves. The big, wholesalers and such of pharmaceuticals like McKesson and some of these companies, I'm sure they have a process in place, but, it is concerning. And, people may say, well, pain drugs aren't that important. If you're in pain every day, they are. Yeah. They're just as important as your blood pressure drugs or your birth control pills or your weekend happy blue pills. I mean, if they're a part of your life, they're a part of your life, and people need them. So, a bit of a wake-up call, as you say.
Okay, 902-405-6000. Lee's giving us a call. Hello, Lee.
Hi, how are you doing today?
Doing well.
Good. I just have a quick question for Dr. Gillis, if you don't mind.
Yep, sure.
Dr. Gillis, I don't know if you remember or not, but I called you about 6 or 7 months ago. I was going through some pretty complicated side effects in regards to gastric bypass, and you told me to kind of bear with it, but congratulate. But anyway, I am actually at the point now where it's been a full year, and I'm down 238 pounds, which has made a huge difference in my life, and thankfully most of those side effects have resolved. My question for you at this point is the weight loss for the last month and a half has really plateaued and is not moving at all anymore. And I'm already in a calorie deficit where I'm only taking in about 1,200 calories a day right now. So I can't see myself further reducing that. The question that I have is I've done some research and heard about these drugs like Saxenda and Wegovy and other weight loss medications. And my question for you is does that actually help burn fat, or are they just used as appetite suppressants? Because like I said, I can't see myself reducing my calories any further.
Yeah, they work by stimulating insulin production, which, curbs appetite and, affects how the body, processes calories a bit. They don't actually burn fat per se. Your case is a unique one. How your body's going to respond, with the changes in your anatomy. So, I can't answer if that's something that, people in that world use for their patients when they've plateaued. In some levels it might make sense, depending on where you are in your journey. In other levels it might not be appropriate, given if you've lost too much too fast, your composition of fat as it is. And, again, I don't know even if these drugs have been studied in people who've had bypass. Obviously, some of them are injectables. If you're taking anything orally, certainly your absorption of it would be affected. But, that shouldn't be the case with an injectable. But, how it affects somebody who's gone through this much change in their body, it probably hasn't been studied or not studied much. So, it's an interesting thought, but it's probably something you're going to have to ask, the people in the docs or other providers in this world, because they'd be the only ones who probably would get asked these questions and see this. It's an interesting question, and if you get an answer from those folks, maybe give us a shout again. I'd be curious to hear what they say. These, as we've said many times in this program, these drugs can be very useful. They also can have a lot of side effects. And a lot of people rely on them as the golden ticket when there's other things that they need to be doing to get their weight under control. As in your case, there are some people that, they try diet and exercise and it doesn't work, and they need to try something else. You did and have had great success. And some people do need these drugs, but it is finding the balance in the context of, your overall health. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you mind if I just ask a quick follow-up question? I'm no longer being followed by the surgeon because he's released me at this point because it has been a year. So So who would and my family doctor is kind of in a situation where he's like, this isn't my specialty, I don't know how to advise you. Is there a group or something, either private or through the public system, that I can contact to find out more information about this or to follow up with? Or am I kind of on my own to explore what's going on?
Well, I guess two things. You could probably ask the surgeon if, given your current question, if you could get a follow-up, or ask their office, is there a support group of patients or people who've been through this? There probably is, you may find some resources online, for people who've had bariatric surgery, and, may be able to answer these questions for you. They're good ones. I just don't know the answer for you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Dr. Gillis. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Lee. Take care. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us for house calls. With Dr. John Gillis. House calls continues when we come back. All right, House calls with Dr. John Gillis. If you have a health-related question or concern, give us a call at 902-405-6000. We've got the doctor to the top of the hour. Got some room for you as well. Give us a buzz at 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Christine's done just that. Hello, Christine.
Hello. Thank you so much for taking my call, Dr. Gillis. I'm a first-time caller. I have something called TMJ or TMD. I started having just pain in my jaw, and I didn't know what it was. And then my husband said, go see a dentist. So I saw a dentist last week, and they are referring me to a specialist. But in the meantime, I looked up some exercises, and I've been taking 2 Advils every day. And sometimes the pain just comes and goes, and it could be excruciating. It feels like every single teeth on the left side of my mouth and the jaw is hurting. And I just wonder if you might have some suggestions and ideas of what I could do in the meantime while I'm waiting for the specialist to see me.
Who are you waiting to see you?
The dentist referred me to a specialist downtown Halifax. I think it's some sort of an oral surgeon or somebody who specializes on this sort of nerve pain. Like, it's called TMJ or TMD. It's a bone that connects, the muscles in the jaw, and it flares up from time to time. And I was told it has to do with maybe grinding my teeth, but the dentist took like a panoramic picture of my entire jaw and said everything is fine with all my teeth. I'm 58 years old. I never had this type of issue before. I didn't even know that I'm grinding my teeth when I'm sleeping. My husband never said he's noticed anything at night. So, but it can be very, very painful, and it comes and goes. Typically comes at night, like between 7 and 10 p.m. I'm in excruciating pain. I take ice, and I put a heat pad, and I take Advil, and I'm a little concerned about taking 2 Advils every day because I think that can be hard on the kidneys or the liver, and I don't want to take medication, but I'm just wondering if you have some ideas or suggestions on this issue. I'm new. I'm learning every day about this.
Yeah, so it was a few things. I mean, you don't need to see a specialist necessarily to get fitted for some sort of dental appliance or bite plate that helps realign your jaw or prevent you from grinding your teeth. That's a very common treatment. Okay. There are some physiotherapy type treatments available where people learn to stretch and relax their jaws. Sometimes it's just tight muscles around the jaw. The big muscles, at the angle of your jaw, that can help. And then, determining what type of pain you have. Is it muscle pain? Is it inflammatory pain? Is it nerve pain? Those get treated differently. So you'd want to have a chat with your doctor about that. Advil's fine, but it's taking it occasionally is not going to do anything for the baseline inflammation. It's like throwing a half cup of water on a boiling pot, or a burning pot. If you're going to put the fire out, you need to put the fire out. So you need to be on something probably consistently for a period of time, whether it's an anti-inflammatory or whether it's a muscle relaxer. If your problem is muscle spasm, Sometimes it's a nerve pain component, and there's better drugs for that. So all of those things can help. But, I'd start to look at a dental appliance, maybe some physio, and a proper regimen of medications, not just sort of once in a while ad hoc, which seems to be what you're doing.
Yeah, and do I see a regular physiotherapist, or is there a specific specialist who specializes on this type of issue?
You'd probably have to look that up. I'm sure the internet will tell you if you, look up TMJ or TMD, disorder, physio, Halifax, or wherever you are, or call a physio clinic to see if they have anybody who specializes in jaw work, that sort of thing. I got one of those mouth guards a few years ago because, I grind my teeth. But it was waking me up was the biggest thing. So this mouth guard helps me not wake up. I don't have pain, but they also had me try a couple times, some physio to see if it would, loosen up my, they told me I already have too big a mouth. It's already as loose as it's going to get. It's not going to help. So. Yeah.
And if this type of issue eventually goes away, or do I have this for the rest of my life? Or I'm just a little concerned because it's very painful. I'm quite worried.
If I could predict the future, Todd and I would be sitting on a yacht off Grand Cayman drinking Mai Tais. So can't tell you that. Everybody's different.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, thank you so
good
much.
luck, Christine.
I really appreciate your help.
Thanks for the call. Good luck. Take care. 902-405-6000 West. Hello.
Hi, how are you, Todd?
Doing well. You?
Great, my man. Great, brother. I love your show. But
thanks, bud.
I'm calling about my mom. So she's been dealing with an issue for some years now. I guess it was 15, 20 years ago. She had blisters in her that aligned her stomach. And doctors really didn't know what the cause was. She was hospitalized for a long time there, but she's out now, and she's been out for some time. But she's still dealing with a pain, and we think it's originated at that point. It's somewhere in her nodes in the lower right side of her stomach. Anyway, but she's dealing with this pain, and it comes in cycles. So 2 or 3 weeks, she's okay, and then all of a sudden, bam, she loses her energy. Things like diarrhea happen. She gets dizzy, but the pain is the main issue. They've been giving her Tylenol 3s, but they don't seem to work anymore. So I guess my question is do you build up a tolerance for Tylenol? And what are our next steps?
So where is the pain? I think I missed that.
It's in her lower part of her stomach, on the right-hand side. I think it's something to do with her nodes.
Do with the what, sorry?
Nodes? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. It's something to do with her stomach and her digestive system.
Okay, well, I guess there's a couple things. The first thing is to have a clear understanding of what the diagnosis is and what the treatment options are. If it's an irritable bowel problem, there are bowel-related drugs that can help with spasm and bowel habits. If it's strictly a pain control issue, yes, you can develop tolerance to all of those things. Tylenol, which is a non-opiate, Tylenol 3, which is acetaminophen with codeine in it. You can become resistant to the build up tolerance to the codeine. And then there's a sort of a ladder of strength of drugs and doses of drugs that, often have to be adjusted over time. So she may need her dose adjusted of what she's taking, but I think it is important to understand what you're actually treating. If it's a primary bowel condition, more opiates, might help the pain, but she may need something to try and settle down the primary condition. If they don't know what they're treating, then we may she may need her pain meds adjusted. So, and this is a fairly common thing. And then some people who don't get pain all the time, they just need a plan for what to do when they get an attack, so they don't have to spend 12 hours in emerge to be told, sorry, we believe you, but we don't find anything new, which is what happens.
Yeah. And that's what's been happening. We've been to emergency several times this year, and we go there, they put her on an IV and whatever, and then they send her home. But we really don't know what's going on. They named a bunch of things that it could be, but nobody's actually pinpointed it, saying this is what it is. And it's kind of frustrating, but I get it. You only can do what you can do. But so she doesn't have a family doctor, and that's another issue. So we need to be able to talk to somebody about finding increasing their dosage or finding a new drug. Yeah, and emergency, they don't really. We talked to them about it, but they really can't do that, I don't think. So I'm not sure what to do.
Yeah. So who's prescribing your drugs now?
Well, she has a specialist. It's infectious disease fellow who kind of took her on because she doesn't have a family doctor, and he's been great. He's been quite awesome, actually. But so I guess we just go back to him, right? I guess.
That's probably your path of least resistance right now. Yeah, I would do that and just, talk about, what the options are. Okay?
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate this. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Wes, good luck. Take care. 902-405-6000. Jack, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Going well.
I was, hi guys. I was working on my deck, just to preface, I was working on my deck for a couple days in the heat. Stupid. I didn't hydrate enough, so therefore I think I'm borderlining in between heat exhaustion and heat stroke. I'm going to get to my question. I've been hydrating half G2, half water. I have all the typical symptoms: headache, little bit of disorientation. Just curious, what's the best fluid? Because I've been doing that. It's kind of subsiding a little bit. Like my headache is starting to subside a little bit. But just wondering, how long does it last? Like once you kind of get into that situation?
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer. I mean, if you truly had the heat stroke, you would think you'd be quite sick and be in the hospital. If you're not that bad, then you probably don't have heat stroke. No. I mean, how much fluid have you put into yourself?
Oh, yesterday I must have put in, I would say, about probably 8 to 10 bottles of water. When I go half and half with the Gatorade, I drink half the bottle and then pour water into the bottle, into the Gatorade.
Yeah, I mean, it would seem to me that, if you got yourself cooled down and hydrated yourself, your symptoms may just be residual headache or a headache from a different cause, and you may just need to treat the headache. You also don't want to drown yourself either. G2 or, regular Gatorade, diluted, 1-to-1 with water is more than enough. If you've had, 8 or 10 bottles of that, unless you were out in the sun for 2 days with nothing, that should do the trick. And the evidence is that, if you're peeing and if you're peeing clear, then you're hydrated. So
yes, I am.
You may just need to, just take something for the headache just to break that cycle, because sometimes you get into that cycle and it's hard to break.
Okay, gotcha. Perfect. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Okay, Jack.
Have a lovely day.
Take care. 902-405-6000. Doctor, I've heard the term heat stroke and sunstroke. Is there a difference, or?
No, it's the same thing. I mean, but people tend to, overuse those terms. I mean, true heat stroke is a medical emergency. Heat sensitivity, heat exhaustion, which is, before you hit the point of heat stroke, is when you start to feel unwell. When you truly have heat stroke, it's a serious thing when your body's, starting to shut down. So we do tend to, overuse or misuse those terms. But the bottom line is, when you're in the sun, be careful, wear sunblock, keep yourself hydrated, be aware of cooling yourself down. If you're older, have other medical conditions, be careful.
Okay, fair enough. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us for house calls with Dr. John Gillis. We've got the doctor to the top of the hour. Got some room for you as well. Give us a call, 902-405-6000. House calls continues when we come back. All right, it's House Calls with Dr. John Gillis. We've got the doctor to the top of the hour. Get some room for you as well. Give us a buzz at 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Paul's giving us a call. Hello, Paul.
Hi, how you doing, guys?
Doing well.
Good. Just a quick question. Doc, I had a surgery on the second week of June on my knee. Just had a torn meniscus. And since then, I've had constant swelling on my ankle. The swelling on the knee's gone down to the point where it's pretty much gone. But on the ankle, every day, I no longer have an ankle. I have a cankle, as I like to call it, or like a breadfoot. as it's jokingly I call it too. I constantly ice it pretty much every night now. I try taking an anti-inflammatory every now and then, but doesn't seem to want to subside at all to the point where, wearing shoes is, causing a lot of discomfort. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably, dependent fluid from the operation, and your venous return is, not as good after your surgery, probably because of the lack of activity. As you get back to it, it should improve. You should get someone to look at it, to make sure you don't have something else going on, like an infection or a clot, but that's less likely. You may, have you tried compression stockings to try and get some of that fluid out of your leg?
It's funny you brought that up. I did try compression stock yesterday, and I had no swelling around the ankle, but it was all the swelling was then pushed up towards the knee.
Yeah, so I mean that may be your solution. I mean, what it will do, it will push it up, but it should dissipate, and then if you're wearing a stocking that goes up to almost the knee, it hopefully will help you. So that's probably what I would do with this one.
Okay, good. I am seeing my surgeon again next week for a follow-up appointment. I just wanted to kind of, since you're on the air, I thought I'd check in with that.
No, absolutely. Happy to help, and I hope you keep getting better. Take care.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks so much, guys.
All right, take care. All right, 902-405-6000. We get the doctor to the top of the hour, Dr. Gillis. I saw this story. I thought I'd get your take on it because I think it's pretty impactful to certainly this province. Read it off the CTV website. Reproductive health advocates say the federal government's failure to commit to funding pharmacare in all provinces and territories is leaving people with a lot of uncertainty and could create inequality across the country. Liz Thompson, advocacy lead for Cover Contraception, says it's really disappointing, says it seems like they don't really know what they're going to do. The first phase of the Pharmacare Act was passed last fall by the Liberals and the NDP. It calls for the federal government to fund the cost of contraceptives and diabetes medications for patients. It also calls on the government to study the best way to create a universal pharmacare program to cover all medications. The Trudeau government signed deals with BC, Prince Edward Island, Yukon, and Manitoba to cover the cost of certain meds, but not all provinces, including Nova Scotia. So what are your thoughts, I guess, on the fact that it doesn't seem as though there's a real sense of urgency to get this signed here in Nova Scotia and the rest of Canada, Dr. Gillis?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess the first thing, I think it is important. I mean, people being able to get the medicine they need, regardless of income or where they live in Canada, is very important, and there are disparities. I mean, I think most of the provincial programs are pretty good. There are some differences. I think the reality, if we want to get into politics, is that this has probably been on the back burner due to the shitstorm happening to the south of us that has upended, some major files around trade, economics, jobs, all these things. And the government's focus has been there. That doesn't mean they should ignore this, and I think they'll get to it. And I think it is important that people, like these advocacy groups, continue to, raise these issues and it gets done. Because, I think it was a key achievement of the last government or the last government and their allies to getting this passed. But if it's not action, then it's obviously not as effective as it could be.
All right, let's get one more caller in. Oh, I lost Dr. Gillis. My apologies. Let's see if we can get Dr. Gillis back. My apologies, bad me. That's right, folks. Sometimes I hit the wrong button from time to time. It happens, right? It happens. And we'll see if we can get the doctor back, and we'll get our last caller on. Vanessa's locking him in there now. There we go. My apologies, Dr. Gillis. Let's get one more on. Carol, hello.
Hi. I think I might have a bladder infection. I've had it for probably about a week, and I'm not sure who to go to talk to about it. I have a family doctor, but my problem is it takes almost 2 months to get for an appointment. So for this mild thing, I'm just not sure what I'm supposed to do.
Sure, pharmacies can take care of simple urinary tract infections, so you might want to give your pharmacy a call or drop down. That might be your best and quickest solution.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right, Carol. Good luck. Take care.
Bye.
All right, Dr. Gillis, you're away next week, correct? You want to make sure I have that information correct. You're off to Ireland.
Yeah, I have yoga Wednesday morning in Dublin, so I won't be able to make it.
All right, have a great trip. We'll see you when you get back.
Thank you, sir.
All
Bye-bye.
right, take care. That's Dr. John Gillis. That is House Calls. We do that each and every Wednesday, with the exception, of course, of next Wednesday. As mentioned, Dr. Gillis will be away, so we'll figure out something to do. Vanessa and I were chatting earlier before the show and might come up with something fun to do. We'll see again next Wednesday. I guess we'll wait and see, but we'll figure it out. The Bank of Canada held its key interest rate steady. We'll talk with Clinton Wilkins about this when we come back.
Thanks.
All right, we will get to your calls in just a little bit, but first we're going to talk about the fact that the Bank of Canada is holding its benchmark interest rate steady at 2.75% for a third straight decision as the central bank grapples with tariff uncertainty. Joining us here in studio is Clinton Wilkins, our mortgage guru, to talk about all this. Clinton, thanks for joining the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Todd.
All right, so what are your thoughts on this, I guess?
You know, I think people were expecting a hold. We put a little survey up on our Instagram. You know, we like to do this once in a while. And the bulk of our connections thought that it was going to be a hold. People either thought it was going to be a hold or a 25 basis point reduction. You know, I think the hold really is dictated by what we're seeing in the job numbers as well in the inflation numbers. So both of these things are not indicative of seeing the rates being lower. I think borrowers in general are hoping for lower rates. It's just the job numbers and the inflation don't dictate the rates being lower. You know, I think going into the fall, you know, things can change really anytime, and things change so quickly, especially with what's going on in the U.S. You know, and the Bank of Canada, I think, is doing these meetings and making these decisions, and they're looking at everything. So, you know, I'm optimistic that we're going to see the rates continue to go down. But when are we going to see them go down? It may now even be into 2026, just depending on what happens with the job numbers and with inflation.
All right, and how about the tariff situation and that uncertainty? What are your thoughts on all that? That's kind of hanging over our heads, right? Casting a big shadow over the economy in general.
Well, and I think our listeners couldn't even clearly articulate what's going on with tariffs. I don't even know from day to day. It's changed so many times, and you know, there's been so many deadlines, and you know, things have been pushed back and changed. And maybe the baseline is going to be a 15% tariff. I don't know. But that is going to impact what's going on in Canada. And I think the biggest economic driver is really going to be, you know, what's going on with our GDP and what happens with our trade. So depending on what happens with tariffs, we may see more of a recession type situation. And if we do, that'll be something that the Bank of Canada is going to take into consideration and lower that key overnight rate to spur spending.
Yeah, for sure. So, look, as far as mortgages go, and we were chatting before we went on air, and you were talking about the fact that your business is doing well and business is up, but a lot of people it's at refinance, or is it when their mortgage renews is when you're getting a lot of action, right?
Huge. This is the number one thing that we're doing every day, Todd. Yeah. It's refinances, and I've never seen refinances like I've seen right now. And I've been doing this almost 21 years now. We've done over 6,000 transactions, but a lot of refis happening, and consumers are doing refinances at renewal, but they're also doing refinances midterm for a variety of reasons. One, to extend the amortization. People want to lower their monthly output of their mortgage payment. You know, they are concerned about the interest rates, but you know, taking the longer amortization is helping them balance out these higher rates. And a lot of these borrowers that we're talking to, it's a temporary extension is the way that they're thinking about it. They're re-amortizing to 25 or even 30 years to bring down that monthly payment, but not forever. They're saying, okay, we're going to do this for 3 years or 5 years. And when the rates are lower in the future, we're planning on bringing our amortization back down to 20 years or 15 years or 10 years or whatever works for them. So that's what we're seeing. And when people are doing these refinances, Todd, they're pulling equity out. Oftentimes they're consolidating unsecured debt. Sometimes they're doing renovations. Sometimes they're doing investments. Sometimes they're just adding a different product like a home equity line of credit. But these borrowers that we're talking to that bought a house more than 3 years ago have a lot of equity in their homes in most cases, especially these borrowers that bought homes prior to 2020. Let's be real. The property values have gone up a lot. I don't think they're going up as quick as they were. And and in terms of price point, I don't know if the price point's actually softening per se. It's just not increasing as quickly as it was.
Yeah, thank goodness for the fact that they've got equity and the price point has gone up, because that's the only way that you'd be able to refinance, right?
Yeah, definitely. You can only refinance up to 80% of the market value of the property. Like,
Right.
for example, if a property value today is $500,000, and a property value, the way that we think about the value is what could someone sell their home for?
Right.
So let's just say, for example, just for rough numbers, it's $500,000. The maximum mortgage that someone could do would be $400,000. And from that, they'd need to pay out any existing mortgage or secured debt, like a home equity line of credit that they would have. So the delta would be what they could really, access in terms of new available credit. And I think that's sometimes confusing to borrowers. Like, sometimes I talk to borrowers that bought a home even like 2 years ago, but they only put down 5%. And then we ask them, okay, well, what could you sell your home for? There's just not equity to be able to take out. So it's really that 80% rule is really, really key.
Yeah, there was concern about this kind of cliff that people were going to be hitting, because we know that people borrowed money quite inexpensively in 2020-ish, that type of time frame.
Canadians were drunk on cheap money.
That's right. And there was this concern that the people would be hitting a bit of a wall. Has that happened?
This renewal cliff, I think that was really, I think it was kind of a catch in the media.
Yeah.
I think for some borrowers, they're feeling the pinch, but I think they're feeling the pinch even before renewal. We're seeing borrowers that, bought a home 5 years ago. Yes, the interest rates have gone up, but everything else has gone up except their pay. So they're feeling it at the grocery store. They're feeling it at the gas station. They're feeling it, buying other consumer goods. They're feeling that their monthly costs are higher now than they once were. And then when the mortgage comes up for renewal, it's really adding kind of that insult to injury in some of these cases. And some borrowers are choosing to sell their homes. I think that we're seeing more listings come up. I'd be curious to hear what the realtors think, but I'm just even looking on MLS. More properties for sale, and I think properties for sale for more days. And the purchase agreements that we're seeing coming in our office seem to be more balanced. We were really in a seller's market here in Halifax. The sellers had all the power. The buyers had really no power. Either buying it, not buying it, and we were looking at bidding wars. Now I think it's more balanced from a buyer's and a seller's perspective, which I'm really here for. As somebody who works in the industry that supports people buying real estate, having a balanced market, where everyone's happy is the most ideal situation. And I hope that continues. And our biggest struggle was that we had this lack of inventory, but I'm seeing more. And I'm seeing more come up every day. So I think that's really positive. And there certainly are a lot of buyers out there, because let me tell you, we've done a lot of pre-approvals this year. And we're just kind of waiting for people to get purchase agreements together. So, I think we're going to see more activity even going into the fall.
Yeah, and people, as far as down payments go, you can borrow your down payment. Is that true?
Yeah, you can definitely borrow your down payment, even from a line of credit or a credit card. That's certainly doable. You could be gifted it from the bank of mother and father.
Yeah.
But the Nova Scotia Down Payment Assistance Program is huge. And, we see a lot of first-time home buyers, depending on what their total income is in the household, to be able to access this Nova Scotia Down Payment Assistance Program. And the program's different across the province, but on the Nova Scotia website, it has all the constraints depending on what county you're in. Different county have different limits based on the purchase price as well as the household income. So definitely something to think about as a first-time home buyer. And, when we're doing these pre-approvals, we're talking to people about their life and what their plans are. And, some borrowers are saying, well, it's going to make more sense if I can put down 20% and I'm going to wait a year or 2 years to do it. And I kind of use this adage to say, these people that bought these homes with 5% down in 2020, they're way further ahead than the people that waited 5 years to try to put down 20% today. Because the purchase price, is what the purchase price is. We're less concerned about rate. What we say, we use this adage that, you're marrying the home, but you're only dating the rate. But it's kind of the same when we're talking about down payment. Yes, it's a sunk cost from the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, Sagen or Canada Guarantee if you put down less than 20%. But the cost of real estate today is likely going to be much less than the cost of real estate will be in the future.
All right. So what is the typical 5-year fixed rate right now?
We're seeing them in the low fours, like 4.25-ish is the current, rate products. Whether you're taking a 3-year or a 5-year fix, or you're taking a variable, all the rates primarily are in the fours. A couple of months ago, Todd, things were really kind of edging down in that 3.99 range, which I think optically looks really good. the difference between the 399 and 409, really not a big difference. But optically, the 399 kind of looked exciting. But a lot of lenders have increased their rates. It's really due to what's going on in the bond market. So I think in terms of what a borrower could expect, 4.5%, 4.25%, maybe low fours, just depending on what the situation is. But that's pretty much across many different rate products. It doesn't matter if you're doing a 3-year or a 5-year or a variable. You're going to see rates in that type of range.
Okay, and a reminder, the Bank of Canada holding its benchmark interest rate at steady at 2.75% for a third straight decision, and I suppose we'll wait and see what happens in September. Any predictions on that, or?
I'm either going to say we're going to see a 25 basis point reduction or it might be a hold. I mean, I'm really going to be watching the job numbers.
Yeah.
I'm going to be watching GDP, and I'm going to be watching to see what goes on with inflation. So we'll be reporting on our show. Our show will be on again. Mortgage 101 will be on in August. I'm sure we'll talk more about what's going on in the Bank of Canada and the economy then for sure.
Okay, Clinton, thanks for coming in, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Todd.
All right, you got a Clinton Wilkins, our mortgage guru. Your calls when we come back.
Thanks.
All right, now we got some time for you. What is on your mind today? The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Give us a call. Again, 902-405-6000. What would you like to talk about today? Whatever is kind of percolating to the top of your mind, give us a call, 902-405-6000. A couple of things that caught my attention. First off, there's a story that we're running this morning. I heard it on our newscast, and I just had to shake my head, and I'll read a bit of it. It says, a group of drivers are now a little lighter in the wallet after trying to get around the scene of a collision in HRM yesterday. Officers were called to the crash on Highway 102 near the exit 1H on ramps, rather on the exit 1H around 7:30. Police used a cruiser with its emergency lights on to block a road to allow first responders to do their work to clear the scene. HRP says no less than 8 vehicles drove around the cruiser onto the shoulder and through the scene despite the lights and verbal commands from officers on the scene. All 8 were stopped, and police issued 15 summary offense tickets, including 8 for failing to obey a peace officer. The fine in Nova Scotia for failing to obey a peace officer is $237.50. And I guess the reason why I bring this up, first of all, out of astonishment that people would behave this way. I just can't believe that people would conduct themselves in this way. I mean, it's just unbelievable. First of all, you've already got an emergency situation happening, and you're going to add to it. And are you in that much of a hurry? That 8 vehicles drove around the cruiser onto the shoulder and through the scene, despite the lights and verbal commands from officers on the scene. So here, first responders are doing their best to deal with a collision, and this is how 8 people responded. It's just unbelievable. So I thought I would ask you the question: how bad is some of I guess some examples of just egregious traffic issues that you've witnessed or that you've seen or that you've been a victim of? How bad are some of the drivers in this area? And give me some examples of this. I just can't believe that people would conduct themselves in this way. Shame on them who have done so. And I think the fine should be much more than $237. So what are your thoughts on this, folks? How bad are some drivers here in HRM, and how, not bad necessarily, as impatient? Give me an example of when you've seen people just be incredibly impatient and take chances and take risks and put other people's safety, including their own, in jeopardy. 902-405-6000, that is the way to reach us. Again, you can get into whatever you'd like. Also, the debate continues in HRM over strong-wear powers. This is something that we've talked an awful lot about on the show, but it's got a lot of importance, and it's potentially very impactful to our city. Councillors Tony Mancini and Becky Kent earlier this week on the show here questioned Mayor Fillmore's leadership during her Councillors on the Hot Seat segment, suggesting that a strong mayor such as Mike Savage did not need expanded powers. Do you agree or disagree? And do you support the Houston government's involvement into HRM's business, into things like Morris Street and housing and and traffic and other issues. 902-405-6000. John's giving us a call. Hello, John.
Oh, hey, Todd, that was fast.
Yeah, you're first up, bud.
Oh, geez, I never had that happen before. Yeah, no, I just wanted to talk about mostly the bad drivers and that here. Just two examples. I was going down Main Avenue. I was trying to take a left on the Burt Street, and the guy in the oncoming traffic, he purposely slammed his brakes on so that I would almost run into him when I was making a left turn, and he started pointing and laughing at me afterwards. That was one example. This was all this week.
Yeah.
Then I'm coming down Dutch Village Road, trying to go to work to the left at the Fairview Overpass, and this woman, it's hard to explain this on the radio without everyone having the visual, but anyway, she went through the red light. I almost T-boned her. She's turning left on a red, trying to go up the hill in Dutch Village. Then two cars almost come and T-boned her. She didn't even look like she knew how to drive or what I was doing, but I've nearly been hit about 10 times in the last week, just getting back and forth to work. I'm sorry, the last couple of weeks. And the other one is too, the honking, the screaming, like I'm trying to turn left on a green light. I don't have the right of way or a flashing green. Mm-hmm. And the guy last night, he's behind me and he's slamming the horn on and yelling and screaming at the window when I don't have the right of way.
Yeah.
So there's like a ton of these examples going on. But anyway, I don't know how to say it on the radio politely, but let's just say I don't think they're locals.
Mm-hmm. New Canadians you're suggesting, and a lot of them are.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be very careful on the because I'm just trying to be respectful and blah blah blah. You get the point. But yeah, and the other thing too, I have going on in the back of the shop. It's happening every day. There is someone going in the back of the lot, and they're doing their business right in broad daylight. I haven't caught them yet, but
you're talking about urinating or defecating? Is that what you're saying?
Defecating right in back of the shop.
Is that right, eh? Wow.
I have to go out and me and the guy upstairs, we have to put gravel over it so people don't see it. But it's been going on every day right in broad daylight.
Wow. Anyway, John, thanks for the call, pal. Appreciate it.
No problem, man.
All right,
Later.
take care. 902-405-6000. So look, folks, I would suggest that there are lots of local people who are generational Canadians who are bad drivers as well, for sure. And lots of impatience going on here, folks. But again, just this story about the group of drivers, eight of them who drove around the cruiser onto the shoulder of the road through an accident scene yesterday, despite lights and verbal commands. I mean, the audacity to do so, it's just unbelievable. 902-405-6000. Mark, hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, you?
Good, thanks. A couple of things. One was the police thing, or the rescue vehicles or tow trucks. Nobody pulls over for those, or very few people. I'm a mechanic, so every once in a while you get called to help somebody on the side of the road. Nobody pulls over it. On a divided highway, everybody just stays in whatever lane, and that's what they do all the time. The only vehicles that pull over are usually truck drivers and other emergency vehicle drivers. That's about it.
Well, that's a shame that's the case. I mean, it's a safety issue, right? Obviously, Mark, this is a huge safety issue.
It's the law and it's a safety issue, and I don't know why people just ignore it. But I don't know, maybe they're too busy on their cell phones.
Yeah, for sure.
The other issue, I just came across the bridge, and there's a lane comes from Barrington Street. I came from from Bedford Highway.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lane comes from Barrington Street, comes around, and you're supposed to merge with the people getting on the bridge from the Bedford Highway. So I let a truck in, and there's a white car there that decides it's coming like way behind me. It wants in the same space. It's like, no, I've already done my good deed and let this truck driver get in. And she forced me over into the other lane. She would not stop.
Hmm.
And it was a young lady from Quebec. She had Quebec plates on her car. Then when she got across the bridge, she turned left to Burnside Drive and drove in the opposite direction of traffic to make her next left turn. She drove in the wrong lane.
Wow. Wow. Unbelievable.
Yeah. So that's why everybody has cameras in their cars now. No wonder.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thanks for the call, Mark.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Take care.
All right. Have a good day.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. So examples of bad driving, folks. Perhaps you might want to share your examples. Maybe it might be cathartic to do so, therapeutic in some way, or informative, or whatever. Give us a call, 902-405-6000. This email from Mark says tailgating, speeding, and aggressive driving is rampant. Everyone's in a big hurry to go nowhere. And that's true. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. And Open Hour continues when we come back.
Facts.
All right, continuing with your calls. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. You can get into whatever you'd like. But one of the things that caught my attention, and you just heard it on our newscast, a bunch of impatient drivers in HRM got a little more than they bargained for yesterday. HRP said they responded to a collision on Highway 102 and marked police cars with emergency lights flashing blocked the roadway to allow for the scene to be cleared, but that did not deter some from trying to get around it. Police say 8 vehicles drove around the cruiser onto the shoulder and through the scene despite lights and verbal commands from officers. All 8 were stopped. Police issued 15 summary offense tickets. The fine was $237 for this, but it just motivated me to ask you about, I guess, just some egregious examples of bad driving and impatient driving that you have been subjected to or witnessed here in the city. And these types of stories, it's hard to believe that anybody would do this. It really boggles my mind how anybody would have the audacity to drive around a scene like this and just the gall. 902-405-6000. Tyler, hello.
Todd, how are you?
I'm well, you?
I'm doing okay. I don't follow baseball, but I know you do. How are your Yankees doing?
Well, they're not doing very good. The Blue Jays are lost a couple yesterday as well, but the Yankees, I don't think have much of a team this year, to be honest with you.
Oh, really? Like I said, I don't follow it, so sorry to rub salt. I didn't mean to.
No problem at all.
Just calling about the driving issue here in Halifax. I mean, it's blatantly apparent that there's many issues with drivers. I just want to address something real quick. The previous caller said he had an incident with a quote unquote woman from Quebec with Quebec plates. The majority of, just so people know, the majority of the rental vehicles that come out of the airport and stuff like that, they all have Quebec plates. So I wouldn't necessarily say that they might have were from Quebec, but they might have just had Quebec plates. So,
fair enough. Yeah. Fair.
Just so everybody knows. I mean, man, there's a litany of issues I could talk about. The amount of roundabouts that are going into the infrastructure now is increasing, and it seems nobody knows how to use them. I spent some time abroad, including in Australia and in Europe, and roundabouts there are used like stoplights here, and people signal into them. When they're into the lane in the roundabout, they signal what direction they're going to go, and then when they exit the roundabout, they exit the direction that they're going, and they signal that way. It works fantastically, and for some reason, it's not taught here. I've actually talked to 2 driving instructors here in the HRM, and they just flat out don't teach signaling into roundabouts, and that creates so many issues. I saw an accident today at the new roundabout in Burnside, for example. It's just there's so many issues. Road rage is one of those things. People don't recognize that your body's telling you you're doing a dangerous thing, even while you're relaxed listening to your music, but you're going 100 kilometers an hour and your instincts are telling you that, you should react. So people don't recognize that, and then they react, and it causes other issues. I think it's an education thing for the most part. There's so many issues that, a very basic, perhaps when you renew your license, you have to do a quick refresh of the rules of the road or something like that. Nothing invasive, nothing obtuse, just, a quick little refresh of some of the rules of the road, right of way, zipper merges, whatever it is, right? Just to remind people. And I mean, there is a lot of, how do you say, new Canadians driving on the road. The same thing, right? I think just for totality of it, to complete an education, in driving. I think the idea of having, when you renew your license, to have a quick little refresh of the rules of the road would be a really good idea and might help alleviate some of the issues that we're having.
I think it's every 5 years now. The license renews. I think it's 5 years. Is it, to your knowledge?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. I suppose the only I think that's not a bad idea, but administratively to do that would create perhaps a bit of a backlog, or I guess that to me would be the only pushback, because I just think that you're gonna have to monitor it, and somebody's gonna have to grade it and all that stuff. So the administration might
perhaps it's something that's done with insurance, or like I said, registration or whatever it is. Every city, every place that you drive in Canada has their own issues. Here in Halifax we have narrow one-ways, and because of the historic infrastructure, things are laid out how they are. We have bike lanes coming in and going out, roundabouts coming in, going out. I don't know what the answer is, but I know that the problem is that there's a lack of education and certainly a lack of enforcement. With what's bringing up this whole issue now about yesterday with the emergency vehicles being stopped, people got to flip and realize, our first responders are the people that are taking care of us. We're only calling them when we need them. We don't call them when we, to say, hey, I hope you're having a good day, or thanks for what you're doing. They only show up when we're having an issue. And for people to not be recognizing that, whether it's an emergency vehicle, responding on the side of the road, or if it's a mechanic, or really anybody, a minivan pulled over, letting the kids have to relieve themselves on the side of the road, move over. It's not only is it a common courtesy, it's a safety issue. Driving's already dangerous enough, especially in the wintertime. And to have this, this amount of issues is absolutely absurd. Just to remind people, you have one job while you're driving. It's driving. That's it. It's not fixing the radio. It's not sticking your middle finger out the window. It's not correcting other people's driving. It's you driving your vehicle.
Okay, Tyler, well said. Thanks for the call, pal.
Bye now.
Take care at 902-405-6000. Tim's the first-time caller. Hello, Tim.
Hello. Good morning. I'd like to comment on bicycle traffic, particularly. I'm wondering why we were taught when we were younger to walk facing traffic so you can see what you're up against. I'm wondering why bicycles don't operate the same way pedestrians ought to, and operate against traffic. Like, I don't see where that would be. I don't understand why that would be a problem. There probably is a problem, but I've never figured it out.
Yeah.
I wonder if anyone could enlighten me on that.
Yeah, I've wondered the same thing, but I perhaps just the act of moving it and the motion of a bicycle and kind of going against traffic might create some challenges visually. I'm not sure. I don't know that, but I agree with you, because when I see people walking or running with traffic, I often think, man, that is very, very dangerous. And I take your point. I think it might be just kind of visibly a bit of a clash for a vehicle to see somebody bicycling towards them. And also, perhaps if you're bicycling against traffic, maybe it goes against the flow of traffic, and that might be a visual that is perhaps potentially disruptive. I don't know that though, Tim, but I take your point.
I don't either, and to me it would seem safer because the bicycle can see the car and whatever he might be doing. I mean, it would seem safer for them to operate that way. So I don't understand why they don't.
Well, Tim, I suppose the whole concept is to allow the bicycle to be a part of the traffic flow. And that would be and that would be contradictory to that, I suppose. I guess I don't know for sure though, but I've thought the same thing, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yes. I wonder if probably someone will enlighten us more about that at some point.
Yeah. If somebody has some insight, please share it. Thanks, Tim.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Take care. 902-405-6000. Donna, hello.
Oh, hi. Thanks for taking my call. Something that I just wanted to mention, there was a report July 24th by CBC News. It happened right here in Halifax. A man was speeding down Jubilee Road doing 126 kilometers in a 50-kilometer zone, and he struck a young lady who was in a marked crosswalk. She was on the hood of his car, and he kept on going, and people were yelling at him to stop, and he didn't stop until he smashed into other people. And this man had 2 violations from before in driving motor vehicle violations in Amherst and Bridgewater. Why wasn't his license taken then? That poor lady would still be alive. This happened a few months ago. I remembered hearing about the accident, but I didn't realize he was going that fast. And there's somebody that I know told me that a father and a couple of his kids saw that accident, her being dragged and everything, and the kids were traumatized, screaming and crying and all upset. Anyway, now hopefully this guy, I have no idea if he was drunk on drugs or both or whatever. Hopefully he gets prison for life. And that's it in that story. And I remember when I was learning how to drive, I took driving lessons years ago, and the instructor said, you're driving for 5 people, yourself, the person to your left, the person to your right, the one in front of you, and the one behind you. He said, always remember, and that's true. He said, you've got to constantly be looking because there's so many people out there that don't know how to drive. Anyway.
Okay, Donna, appreciate the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Carl, hello.
Oh, hey, Todd. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
This, road rage and everything going on. The last time I drove around in Miami, down there, the instant the light turns green, everybody leans on their horn. I mean, like the instant it turns green, like, let's go. And God forbid anybody flicks somebody off. That you never do that in Miami unless you want bullet holes in your car. So it's like there's places that are like really bad that way. I can't even imagine LA. Anyway, I just thought it's a problem everywhere. It truly is. And it just seems like it's getting worse. It really is. And it's sad. I mean, it's like, wow. I haven't been driving my van unless I really need to. And I'm just, with the traffic and everything, and you're just sitting there not moving and you're burning gas. It's like I've been using the bus and my bike more than ever and just choosing not to drive because it's just such a hassle.
Yeah, for sure. I think as the city densifies, as the population increases and more vehicles are on the road, I think that this kind of goes with the territory. I really do. Hence Miami and these large cities. I think the bigger the city, the worse it gets. Really, Carl.
Yeah, it's sad. Okay,
yeah.
Man, that's all I had to say.
Okay, thanks for the call. 902-405-6000. What's your take on this, folks? You egregious driving out there, bad drivers. Give us a call. Let us know what your thoughts about it, what you think about it. If you've been a victim of it, if you've experienced it. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, continuing with your calls. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Something that has inspired some conversation today or sparked some conversation today. The fact that a bunch of impatient drivers in HRM got more than they bargained for yesterday. HRP responded to a collision on Highway 102. Marked police cars with emergency lights flashing blocked the roadway to allow the scene to be cleared. That didn't deter some from trying to get around it, including 8 drivers who drove around onto the shoulder and through the scene despite the lights and verbal commands from officers on the scene. All 8 were stopped. Police issued some tickets. Fine is $237. I would say it should be at least double that. Anybody who would drive around a scene of an accident and put people's lives in jeopardy and safety in jeopardy in the way that these bozos did deserve everything that they would get and then some, in my opinion. And I'm asking you to weigh in on this and share some of your examples of impatient drivers, bad drivers here in the city. 902-405-6000. And how much of a problem is it? Is it getting worse? And I suppose that as population increases, that is probably going to get worse. And road infrastructure, and we know a lot about congestion, and we've talked a lot about all these issues on the show. 902-405-6000. Peter's giving us a call. Hello, Peter.
How are you doing, Todd?
I'm well, you?
Good. My story's a little different. You know how it's happened a lot. People passing school buses that are stopped with their lights flashing in either direction, right? And a sign of the times. Well, the other week I was going up the road, live on a rural road, and it was garbage day. And there was a car stopped in the road, so I stopped behind it. And on the other side was the garbage truck, right? So she stopped thinking the garbage truck was maybe a school bus. So anyway, I kind of got a chuckle out of it, right? And so she would never do what they did yesterday at the police stop, but I thought it was funny. And point being, there's a lot of bad drivers, and they come in every shape and form, and it doesn't matter. It's just, it's kind of bad. But I thought that was funny.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Peter.
Thank you.
Thanks for the call. 902-405-6000. Barry, hello.
Hi, Todd.
Hi there.
This is a little off the topic. I was just wondering, you might want to pass this on to the people that run the station. With the fires burning out west, and it's only getting worse, maybe a one day a week might give an update as to the total number of fires and the total area that's been burned. There's a map that, government puts out that shows a dot for every fire, and red if it's out of control, and it just will scare the pants off you when you look at it. And another quick comment, I think Carney should be concerned about that. And perhaps the feds should step in and take over. There's a company out in Calgary that's building what they consider the best water bombers in the world. And there's been orders placed by Europe and all other countries in Canada, but none from Canada, except the Premier of Manitoba just ordered, I think, 2 or 3, and he has to wait until 2032 for delivery. But anyway, I just thought I'd make that suggestion.
Okay, Barry. Thanks for the call, pal. Appreciate it. Take care. Okay, 902-405-6000. Donna's giving us a call. Hello, Donna.
Hi, Todd. Thanks for taking my call today.
Sure.
I just wanted to tell you about my experience about some drivers. Often I've been behind a transit bus letting people off, and there'll be like 4 or 5 cars behind me. I stop behind the bus. I don't pass the bus. And there'd be 4 or 5 cars behind me, and I swear the 4th, 5th car back, they will pull out, they will speed up, they will pass the bus, and they don't care if they have a head-on collision, which I've almost seen many times, or they hit somebody getting off the bus crossing in the crosswalk in front of the bus. And it's very, very dangerous. And I can't count how many times I've seen that. And also with school buses, but mostly the transit buses are really bad for that, especially down there around Alderney Gate and that area there.
Yeah.
And up Portland Street area. Yeah, it's dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Don, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for the call.
Thank you, Todd.
All right, take care. All right. And folks, look, I do think that that a lot of these issues are a result of an increased population and congestion and density and impatience. Because look, you go into, not to suggest that there aren't bad drivers in all communities and smaller communities, but I think it's pretty evident if you're in a small community. I've lived in smaller communities, and the pace of driving is slower. People generally take their time more, and people are just more patient, I think, generally. And as we get more congested and there's more densification going on, I think that it's inevitable that you're going to see this type of thing. But there's absolutely no excuse, folks. I mean, I just cannot believe that anybody who would come up upon a scene like an accident and where there's police there stopping you so that people can clear the scene, that you would decide that it's okay to go on the shoulder of the road and drive around them. I just can't believe that people would do that. It's inexcusable and egregious and whatever other adjective that I could think of. It's just unbelievable. And the fine of $237 for failing to obey a police officer, I think should be at least double that. And you deserve it, every nickel of it, and then some. Anyway, thanks for the calls, everybody. We appreciate it very much. It's a shame that we have to talk about these types of things, but it's the nature of it, I suppose. Again, a growing city, I think it's just the nature of a growing city, and impatience is part of it, unfortunately. Thanks for listening, everybody. We appreciate it very much. I'd like to thank Vanessa Van Den Ness on the other side of the glass. The control board's doing a fine job as always. We're back tomorrow at 10 o'clock. See you then.